Welcome everyone to this month's Divaan. And this time we have the pleasure and honor to be joined by Anahimia or Afra Khan. Very glad to have you here with us today, also known as the Queen of Sirius, I've understood. And Afra, you're an electronic music producer and DJ, also visual artist, and engaging in several different disciplines of art, photography, video, digital art, also student of many spiritual disciplines, Kabbalistic philosophy, and planetary futurism, part of your expression. And you've had your work exhibited in London and Paris, alongside legends like Daft Punk and Kraftwerk and other big names. And also you've been one of the first music editors for Saudi Arabia's leading national daily Arab news. Really a master of many crafts, I have to say. And also you're the author of Girl Alchemy, a self-help handbook for females on how to guide your female potential into achieving success. And today you're here with us to talk and reflect on, I guess, various topics, since that's, you know, your mastery spans over various things. The audiovisual, I expect, we'll be hearing about different spectrums from that. But also you've co-founded together with your sister a feminine centric home-based perfumery called Zense. So we might also be blessed to hear some things about scent today. Yes, looking very much forward to that. So big welcome and thank you for joining us.
Firstly, thank you so much, everyone, for turning up. I was actually, look, I have to preface this discussion that we're all going to engage in by saying that I don't know how Alicia does this. I was not informed that this was happening. I didn't even know I was gonna like deliver some kind of chat, but I can only expect someone like Alicia to like throw a bomb, like literally, and run with it, you know? And then me just being like, oh yeah, okay, I expected that out of her now. I just have to show up, right? So literally, she's the only one who can get away with stuff like this. If it was anybody else, I'd be like, what? No. And then I was thinking about that in the morning. I said, yeah, sometimes we just need to show up, you know, because we can tend to be like so methodical about our life and just about like our everyday happenings, right? We're gonna do this at this certain time, but she just like makes me like throw everything out the window, like, you know, look, there are no rules, and just like run with it. And so literally when Louisa, you were like reading this little biography, I really had to smile to myself, and I'll tell you why. And that was because for a long time, I thought like something was literally like wrong with me, you know, for wanting or having the desire to indulge in like various things. Obviously, there is a thread of creativity, and, you know, everything that I'm doing are just outgrowths of that thread, right? But then there was also this feeling of like, what's wrong with you? You know, in this world today, super specialization is revered, right? If you're like super specialized in a certain field, that's brilliant. It has to be that way, but it doesn't have to be that way for everyone. And I wasn't able to reconcile with that fact until I met Alicia, literally. Like, I would tell myself, right, like, it's okay, you're like those men, right, of the eras gone by who were polymaths, basically, like people like Ibn Sina and so many other scientists, but who were also spiritualists. They also wrote on religion. They did this and they did that. And it was Alicia, when I met her, who literally like manifested like what was running in my head into like words into sound and said, you know what, we're polymaths and you just have to like accept that fact, right? So I really have to thank you for that, because if it was not for you, I would still be struggling with that thing in my head. So anytime someone would read my bio, I would cringe. I would think like, oh, something's wrong with me. Like, this just doesn't sound right, you know? But then, like, literally thanks to you for like helping me through that mental condition. So yeah, that. But yeah, I was also secondly really intimidated, you know, to like come in front of all of you women, because I know you guys are like pals, you know, in this divan, and you've been like doing this for a really long time. Like, literally for me, this is like the first. Although like, just through lineage, I come from a tradition of Sufism. Like, people from Kashmir, which is my mom's heritage, are basically Sufis, you know? But then for me, that label was just so like, yeah, no, maybe it was the Saudi Wahhabist influence, right? Like, I literally grew up in Saudi Arabia. So maybe it was that conditioning. And yeah, like, again, I have to credit Alicia for making me think about it differently, you know, and more than like labeling yourself a Sufist, it's, I think, about just living that path. You know, you don't really have to put a label to anything. But coming back to the point, I was really intimidated to come in front of you guys, because I was like, these guys are like hardcore Sufis. I don't know what I'm gonna tell these people that's gonna like make them you know, make their heads spin. So yeah, I just hope that you can help me like flow this conversation and you know, take it to places that we can all explore like together. But I'm also happy that I'm familiarized with all of you, so that kind of helps. But yeah, Louisa, Alicia, like, what do you want me to talk about? I have a couple of things I do want to share, but what do you think is gonna like serve the moment right now? Where should we begin?
I just have a few words before you know, we kind of get into that. Number one, we don't have a game plan, right? And again, we're just like, we were actually talking yesterday to say, okay, you know, who should we get on board? And we're like, okay, we get Afra, and I'm like, okay, message her if for whatever reason she can't do this. You know, it's very unprofessional last minute. We usually book in advance, you know, and give people enough, you know, time and so forth. But again, it was just like, just do it kind of thing. And so we really appreciate your fluidity in accepting, receiving, and just being so generous to give us your presence, your time, your energy, and everything else, your smile, right? And your music, apparently, because when you speak, it's music. So basically that's that. We're not masters, we're just a bunch of mad women. And the only difference is we admit it. Others are struggling to come to terms with that. I've dealt with a lot of women. I'm like, you can just join our Divaan, because honestly, we can't help you in terms of coaching and all of that. Just join the collective and you're going to be fine. You're going to see like the alchemy happening. You're going to see that transmutation or whatever it is that you're seeking. And you're going to find it here, because so basically I guess we don't attract the big numbers. We attract very like specific sort of, you know, like I said the other day on the poem, there is a class of lovers, neither scripture. Let me just read it here to, you know, sound a bit, you know, organized. There is a class of lovers, neither mala nor breath, salah nor scripture rescuated them, only love, only a Layla, as savior in spirit, as messenger of madness, as creed and condition, all sense-eyes bowed out, unable to compete nor teach these damned ones, fated to salvation, all because of Ishq. So that's basically it. And we're just kind of, we know we're damned. So, and that's about it. That's the only thing we can confirm about us. Yeah, so we have hope in love, and we're just like whatever. So it's an honor to have you here, and that's all I can say. Louisa's a bit more structured, but she's also losing that structure, which is good. Becoming more water-like, but whatever, her elements come in different ways, and you know, and whatnot, which is all necessary. So we're just happy to have you here, and we're just gonna see how it goes. And you, yeah, okay. So anything you'd like to add to that, Louisa?
No, I mean, personally, I'm just very excited to hear you talk about anything that's like, I guess, coming to your heart regarding all of these things that you're, you know, that you're exploring and like cooking with, making magic out of, because yeah, it's like you mentioned, literally, you know, there are people who are very specifically into one thing, but then there are others who are like magicians on many aspects. And I wouldn't want to, you know, maintain that just because we're dealing with many subjects means we're like less kind of experts in them. So I more see it like, you know, you get the breadth, but also the depth. So yeah, I don't know, Alicia was throwing out the thing with scent and sound, but like literally anything coming from your, you know, your golden chamber of potions.
I really like that. I really enjoyed hearing like the both of you, you know, yeah, doing this preface. And yeah, I think it would be very interesting to talk about scent and also sound. Um, how do I begin this? Yeah, I want to give a little bit of like an introduction of femininity and the idea of scenting and perfuming. But before that, I want to share yeah, I want to share like an incident that happened with me very, very recently. And okay, let me begin with saying this. So yesterday on Zense, I posted this, and Alicia's taken a look at that, I believe. I posted this link to a study which was done in Michigan University, I believe, when this lady was basically doing a research paper on body scent and how it relates to Arabs in general, because obviously she had access to a lot of foreign exchange students coming from the region, and she must have thought it would be great to have them as subjects, because obviously the art of perfuming is so widely entwined with Arabic culture. And one of the giveaways in that particular study was, it was very fascinating. It said that if someone were to lose their sense of smell, it actually leads to depression. And that kind of like triggered something that I had experienced via another individual very recently. So last year, there is this person that I was introduced to through common friends, and the birthday was coming up. And for me, I enjoy the art of gifting. It's yeah, it really helps break the ice amongst people. And yeah, obviously, you know, it's the best way to start like any kind of like a relationship. And we were all invited, and I was thinking to myself, okay, what do I do? You know, like, what do I give this person? Because I don't even know this person at all, like not at that level where I know, you know, I can give them something really intimate. And so I was in San Francisco at that time, and then so I was just walking by. Obviously, me being super interested in fragrances and things like that, I wanted to go to this particular perfumery called Tiger Lily, and they stock some of the most like unheard of perfumes, like bedroom perfumists and like indie perfumers. They all, but very high quality stuff. Like they are very stringent about what they stock. And so that was like a go-to place I had to like go and visit, right? So I go and I come across this yeah, Tiger Lily, that's right. So I come across this this DIY perfumer, and is like a very unisex but very, very strong fragrance. And I said, you know what, I think this is the best gift to give someone. Also maybe a little biased kind of a gift because I love perfumes, but you can't really go wrong, you know, like it's, yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with gifting someone you don't know with a perfume bottle, right? So I picked it up, and then obviously I give this to this person. And then later on the next day, this individual calls me up and says, you know, it was about 7 years since I smelled anything like a fragrance. Can you imagine that? Like for me, first I was shocked, and then I felt like sympathy for this individual. I felt like really sad, and then also happy because yay, I nailed it, you know, in the gifting department. But then as the conversation went on by, I discovered that this person was suffering from depression. And I couldn't help but, like, now yesterday when I came across that study, I couldn't help but make that relation, you know, between, for me that was strange firstly, you know, but this individual meant particularly, like, of course you smell everything around you, this person is a living individual, but I think what they meant was a fragrance that uplifts you, you know, and that was like really, really strange for me. And so there's that. So when things like this come in, you know, because usually people think that perfuming is about luxury, but it really isn't. There's so many things, and you know, there hasn't been too much research going on about this. It's only now that people are, you know, thinking of like making correlations between well-being of your body and scenting and things like that. But yeah, for me, I really got that firsthand experience having someone talk about it, and then, you know, having the study come about, and then making that relationship between the two. And just that was fascinating for me. I don't know what you know, you guys have to say about that. Have you had like experiences of like where, you know, scenting has like broken some kind of perception about an individual? I mean, obviously the whole attraction factor, even whether it's males or females, you know, minus the pheromones, let's leave that out of the picture, right? Because that's something that's happening on an unconscious level, and that's a whole different ball game. But just like even like a synthetic fragrance, when someone wears a fragrance, it's a maker or a breaker, right? So I don't know, do you guys have any particular like experiences? And I mean, I would be curious to know, and that would be like so helpful for me. So yeah.
Well, like, I'm just gonna snatch the mic because I just literally, the first thing when you said like, you can't go wrong buying, you know, someone a fragrance, I thought, oh my God, that is such a bold, you know, belief to have. And maybe that is because, you know, I'm brought up in a very sort of, I wouldn't say it's like a culture that's scared of scents, but I would say there's no refinement of any scent. Like in the Nordic countries, people have there's like the science of perfumery definitely does not exist. Like, yes, you can go into random, you know, stores and they have the perfume sections and you get what's there. But I don't think people really have like mastery over how to use perfumes or when or like in what amounts. So definitely like that is such a, I would say, difference in my perspective. I'm like, I would be so scared if someone would gift me a perfume unless I would know that they would be you, for example, or, you know, someone who has that refined taste. And the second thought that came to mind is when I was living in an ashram for 5+ years. And one of the requirements while living there was to not have anything scented at all, like shampoos, body lotions, conditioners, everything had to be like fully odorless. And that of course led to, especially maybe, you know, the young guys, they were quite pungent sometimes in their, yeah, like obviously, you know, you're walking around, you're doing a lot of physical work, maybe not like excessively changing clothes in between like being forest working and then you go into the yoga room to teach. And that was just like it was an interesting experience to be around like that kind of very raw human scent. And you said, let's skip the topic of pheromones, but definitely like also that gave me an idea of when people cover, you know, body scent with something, it doesn't help. So there has to be both that, you know, subconscious click and then, you know, that maybe more acquired taste of like, yes, this, like, you know, someone wearing clothes maybe doesn't make their, you know, original body shape like that much different, but it can enhance or it can like, you know, pull it down. So I think, yeah, with the same way with perfumes and scents. But yeah, just in general, like stunned to hear that there is that kind of a confidence within the Arab culture of like, yes, we know how to do scents. And I'm like thrilled to hear more and learn more about that.
Does anybody else insight, personal insight?
I've got some stuff to share, but please, you know, the floor is open to our friends here, Mehtab, Noor, and May.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. Now I'm up. I'm officially awake. I heard you guys, but my eyes are open now. I wanted to say that when the sense thing is going on, that the way I resonate with it is my like healing has to do with all your senses working. Like being whole is when your five senses, your mind, body, and spirit, but the body's like all five senses. So yeah, that makes sense. Like I can't smell. Yeah, I'm thinking like I really cannot smell. Like that sense was turned off too, you know, for the whole fight and flight. So it's actually beautiful. And it's funny because just recently I was yesterday at the Black Friday thing looking like at perfumes, and I'm like, man, I want my own scent. Like I want when I get somewhere to smell like me. And everything was good or almost fake, but or they were asking me, what kind do you want? Like sweet, spicy. SubhanAllah, like just yesterday. And I was just trying to figure out what scent I liked. Yeah. Go ahead, Afra. Yes, ma'am.
Nuri, it's very interesting that you talk about personal, you know, having an essence of your own personal self, of your own being. And that's like one of the guarded secrets, right? And there's been like a lot of like interest from Western media and Western researchers about how to actually infuse natural body scents. I mean, they've been like musk is one of the, you know, it was one of the first that came out, like, you know, in the context of like animalistic fragrance, right? But then what's also very interesting, of course, there are ways of how people can incorporate like their personal sense. You just have to use your bodily fluid. And one of the boldest moves that was actually made in this domain of personal scenting a perfume was, I believe it's not a rumor. I actually even read it on Wikipedia, if I'm not mistaken. This was almost 7 years ago. Lady Gaga had come out with her own perfume, and it was mentioned that one of the elements that was used in that perfume was the male bodily fluid. So can you imagine that? And that almost like took me in another direction of like, so I also concurrently study Vedic texts and things like that, because also I'm very interested in perfuming, and the Indian Vedas and Ayurveda have like a huge, they have like very deep studies and scriptures that have to do with the art of perfuming and things like that. And one of the things that's mentioned in Ayurveda is one of the treatises that deals with how to, now we're going to go into the realm of like black magic and things like that, right? But this is what's mentioned in one of the treatises of the Vedas, is that you can control individuals by using your bodily fluid. And I think also in the Arab world, not the GCC, but in the rest, like let's call it the Middle East, there are sects of people, I think from North Africa, that have been known to indulge in these rituals. So that like the first thought that crossed my mind was, is this a way of mind controlling the masses through a perfume? You could literally put any intent into like a bodily substance, right? Of course, like scientifically speaking, after a little while, what's alive in the bodily fluid would die. But even then, like, can you put intention into something that was living for a little while and then release it to the masses? Just something to think about, I don't know how the mechanics works, and I'm not going to pretend that I know how it works. I'm sure someone with much more advanced knowledge of like black magic would have an answer to this. As someone from a medical background, I would say bodily fluid, obviously the cells would die after a little while. So is the effect still going to run for the lifespan of the perfume bottle? I don't know. I don't have an answer to it. But is it just enough for you to just put an intention into a living substance and then it doesn't work? It does its work, I don't know about that either. So I don't know, maybe you have something to talk about this. Maybe shed some insights. That was a heavy hitter. I think everyone's like, what?
I know about like here in the Nordic, like, the pagan traditions definitely have different, like, whatever I've read in books, spells that do, include, for example, sweat or other things for making people fall in love or things like that. I think there is a big part of having something of oneself put into something that then, and especially via scent, of course, that's like a very, it's not just the person wearing it, it's going to be everyone who, I guess, smells it. But that also, just like bridging to the non-scent factor, because I was, thinking, what's the reason why during a period of intense, like, spiritual practice, we're asked to not wear any scents at all? And I'm thinking, like, what's the purpose of stripping down all those influences? And like, just the responsibility of using things that have an impact, because like smell, it's one of our, isn't it like one of the most ancient, organs, like the sensory, the smell organ, like in the brain, the part that, has to do, that's like the reptilian part, very old, and hence, can go like super deep into the subconscious, like past all of our maybe conscious safety mechanisms.
It's very fascinating that the ashram that you would be at, because a lot of the ashrams in India now, or back in the 70s, which are still continuing with their followers, mostly from the West, they basically refurbished a lot of like the teachings that they took from, like the Vedas, for instance, place huge importance on the art of perfuming, and especially when it came to spiritual practice. So it's very fascinating how the new crop of ashrams would go with the idea of, like complete purity in some sense of being. Do you know what I mean? But obviously there are, there's like a huge correlation between the, scenting and perfuming and spiritual elevation. It's not that you can't elevate yourself without like, some kind of incense or perfume of the body. It's not like a mandate, but it's more like an aid, I think, something that, and this is what they would also do in the churches, right? They would have like, the priest would have this, what would you call that? These smoke carriers, right? And they would basically be swooning the people with it, because it takes you into like the very heavy frankincense and myrrh can elevate you. It can make you swoon. And there are a lot of stories that have, spoken to us about how women used it as a method of deceit when they had to like trick kings and their ministers and people like that, just by like by using perfumes, like very specifically, they would just like shatter them, right? So it was easier to control people also just by fragrance itself. So we can't deny how powerful scenting and perfuming is. But yeah, I can see why these ashrams would go with the idea of like, you know, basically being like, I don't know, clean, you know, of
I
stuff.
think, yeah, I think probably the lack of refinement is my guess, because it's like you take in people for, you know, a deep initiation, and then like they're having their MP3 players with like music of all sorts. They're wearing, you know, all their artificial scents without like any maybe idea behind it. And, you know, then they're watching their TikToks, and like you'll not get down to that kind of stripped state where you maybe want people to be if you're gonna like actually transcend your everyday kind of being. So I think definitely like there were times when there was incense, for example, and that was like after such a long scent fast, it was so powerful and it was like so strong to just experience that. And then I think also, since, you know, some rituals or techniques involved like, you know, experiencing maybe extrasensory scent or smell, like without that kind of external input, then obviously that's like going into a dark room. If you want to visualize, you like take away the external objects. But yeah, just very fascinating.
Yeah,
I
and it's
just
also
had,
it's also very interesting how, you know, scents and perfumes can literally make or break relationships, and most especially when you're just at the beginning of it. So very recently, I think about 4 days ago, I was watching a snippet of this lady on BBC. She was like a young girl, like the perfect like Barbie doll fantasy of the modern man, you know? Like you'd look at her, she was so attractive, like slender, slim, like slick blonde hair and like beautiful structured face. Like even for a woman, you could just appreciate her looking at her, right? And then she had something so amazing to relate. So they were, I think it was like a dating show or something like that, or stories from like the dating, you know, dating experiences and things like that. And so she said that she met this guy, and she had worn a pair of her pair of jeans or whatever, right? And the guy would keep telling her, I forget her name, so Madam X, let's say, right? Don't you smell something like really funky in here? And it literally, it smells like shit, right? And she's like, yeah, I don't know, like, you know, why it's been like, yeah, I feel that too, like I can smell it. And apparently they like they changed places. They thought it had to do something with like the place that they were in, right? So they go to another place and the scent follows, and this girl's telling him, I promise it's not me, I took a shower today. And he's like, okay. And then she goes back home, and then she meets her dad in the house, and the dad's like, did you wear those pair of pants? And she's like, yes, dad. And he's like, okay, I don't want you to freak out, but and I don't want you to get angry, but we ran out of toilet paper and I saw your like jeans nearby and I had to use that. And so and then I got thinking, like, this guy is no, she's so beautiful, but he's forever gonna associate her with that scent. Do you know what I mean? It's really sad. I mean, I hope not. I hope he forgives her that transgression. But I
it's
don't know.
over.
It's really tough to break
It's
that.
over.
Yeah, it's really tough to break that association. So yeah, be careful what you put on. Like, it's just not even about perfuming. Like, just check your clothes before you go out, go somewhere really important. But yeah, it's yeah, something to think seriously about, you know, because once you make an association of a person, no matter who they are, with a certain kind of bodily scent, I think it's very hard to break those associations, because like medically speaking, also they make connections in your brain, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's something to think about, like, quite seriously, in fact. And I mean, it's not a frivolous thing for sure, but you know, I mean, otherwise it wouldn't be such a huge industry it is today, I think. I hope it is for the right reasons, but I don't know, you know. But yeah, if you're invested in like scenting and perfuming from a very serious point of view, it's like fascinating how you can just like use perfumes to like, I don't know, like make nations go to war. Like, and women have done that before. So, you know, I think we've just forgotten like how to use that in for good, I hope, you know, obviously. But yeah.
Just wanted to comment here a couple of things. One was the use of the body fluids and all of that, right? I'm not, you know, very invested in that sort of knowledge, but I do know that yeah, all that is possible, but there is this concept called nesma. Nesma, it's like in Arabic meaning like an imprint, right? So your hair, your yeah, your clothing, they all have this spiritual energy connected to the person, right? So that's why they, you know, traditionalists talk about, you know, when you discard your nails after cutting them, or, you know, if you've got, you know, hair and, you know, you've got, you know, when you comb your hair or whatever, to discard it in a specific way because of that connection, that live connection to you. And people in the black arts or the dark arts basically do capture these connectors associated with the person. So they'll get a shirt or, you know, hair, whatever. This is what I've heard. Okay. The other thing is that you spoke about, because I was having like all sorts of thoughts, you know, because mashallah, like there's so much going on in the convo, you know. Another thing was that in Islam, it's basically a mandate to be perfumed because the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, you know, he loves perfume, woman, and salah, right? So perfume is mentioned in there. There is so much about scent that you're not allowed to go to a place of worship, i.e. a mosque, if you have consumed garlic or onion, because it, you know, it's repulsive, basically, not just to human beings, but to the angelic realm as well. You have the practice of the Sufis and people in the Arab world, especially, and even India and South Asia and whatnot, all over the Muslim world, the practice of incense. You have oud, that is just another science in itself, and it's a living tradition. So all these gatherings, certain days of the week, to attract that kind of divine energy, you have the burning of the oud, the frankincense, the mention of, you know, Jesus being gifted, right? There was something about, you can talk about that after, tell us, yeah, the three men, I'm forgetting that. So there is so much emphasis on that. The idea of perfuming yourself on a Friday. Cleanliness is just like, we're told cleanliness is half your iman. So cleanliness also means taking care of your body odor, right? The natural, it's not something that's, if you're keeping yourself clean, then you have probably a healthy, you know, overall, you know, scent going on naturally. Another thing Louisa mentioned was in the ashram, how they were not permitted. It could probably be like an interpretation of certain schools of thought. So maybe she came from, like, she was in an ashram with a more astringent, and like you said, in the Vedic traditions. But that reminded me of the idea of Hajj, where you're supposed to go back to your fitra. Everyone becomes that one energy of that human being, like, you know, your clothing, you're not supposed to use perfumes, soap and perfume, basically, because you're going back to your natural self. So maybe it's like, yeah, it's probably a spiritual sort of practice to heighten the senses, but also to let go of the external. But again, it's an encouraged practice. So generally speaking, like I was living here in the West, and then when I went to Saudi Arabia, I was like, all my perfumes from the Western part of the world straight out into the giveaways. And I was sold, I used to go into the malls just to get high on the scent. I used to be like, And whenever you go to certain gatherings, you're like drenched and you're like intoxicated with the smell. People who pass you, they're like, you know, exuding the beautiful and the pure sense. So you don't like, if you have the synthetic whatever it's called, you know, when you're allergic, like I would get headaches, but then I noticed when it was actual perfume that's original or pure natural, never got the headaches. One last point was I don't know if I brought you, oh, you went for a filming with the crew, right? With the boys and the kids to Sharif Khalid's perfumery. Like, he had the most exotic sense. And I had asked him, you know, what brings you here? Because he was the grandson of the last king of Hijaz, or the Muslim world, Sharif Hussein's grandson. And he went to France, I believe, to acquire this knowledge, right? And he has the most exotic and most beautiful scents in his shop that he creates himself, the combinations and so forth. And you know, and the stuff he has, you know, things are very pricey there. But he says that for him it's a healing, because when he's alone and he's in a meditative state, he creates the combinations and then he tries it out for himself, and then he puts it out there. And he even said that when the royals come to his shop, they come and they actually get themselves branded or whatever. You know how we were talking about getting your own scent. So he has specific ones for specific people as well. So he creates that custom kind of stuff. So yeah, it's extremely potent perfume culture. It's a thing. It's like part of your ascension journey. Without that, it's like, you're sorry, you can't. You know, you just can't. You can't make it. You can't make it. That's it.
I just have to, you know, quickly say, relating to body scent or odor, because it's interesting that there's this, you know, you can't go in, you know, to a mosque if you've had garlic or onions. When we go back to, you know, the Vedas or yogic tradition, like there are definitely dietary restrictions for what you should not eat to have a good meditation practice. And I think probably it's not just, you know, like you said, it doesn't just offend your like fellow worshippers, it also, you know, offends the other realms. But from a yogic point of view, you'd say like onions and garlic, for example, would put you in a state that's not conducive for deep, you know, meditation. Second thing was something I heard as a, like, if you come in contact with someone who claims they're a spiritual teacher, do a smell check. And if they smell bad, then run. Because like a true spiritual master exudes a like good, like heavenly smell. And that's not the perfume. That's like their, you know, their own essence. So yeah, very, very sort of interesting how, and also there people say like when you reach certain stages of purification with, you know, yoga, meditation, since these are the sciences I know more than for example, from Sufism, then your body odor changes. And I've noticed that on myself, like prolonged practice, you start to smell like your body, your skin smells different. It's very, very fascinating.
I think we're like so many points here, right? If you were to live like your life in a very conscious way, conscious about how you're speaking, what you're eating, then obviously your body odor is going to reflect that. But we're obviously not perfect individuals, which is why I think, thank the creator that we were able to, you know, extract, you know, stuff from the natural world. Like real scents and perfumes actually come from the natural world, and those have their own healing powers to that are submitted to the human. to the human force. Literally, they're bowing to you in service of the human. You know, God created all of these things for us, not just medicines, but also, since we're talking about perfumes, and that. But yeah, I wanted to make a point which I forgot. But yeah, what I want to say is that I think about Alicia's point. Yeah, it reminded me, you know how I said I don't know how Lady Gaga's inclusion of the ingredient would actually work at like a living, vibrating level. But now you've reminded me that how actually black magic, you can use somebody's like nail or hair, which is actually scientifically dead protein, right? So how do they use like dead material then, like scientifically dead material, to like affect someone? So yeah, I think that kind of answers my point, my the question that I had in my mind as to the validity of using like living, so-called living body, body substances like saliva or what have you, to control, like to mind control people. So that's very fascinating. And I remember very well going to my editor, because she was also like very interested in things like this, and we shared a lot of things together. And she said, yeah, we have to like run a story about this, because it's going to appeal to a lot of people. This was when I was writing for Arab News, and she said, yeah, it's totally relevant because Arabs are into perfumes. That's going to be fascinating. Lady Gaga is like a trending celebrity, so obviously, and at that time, Gaga's perfume was out, so it totally made sense. But then, yeah, we got shut down from the inside to not run with that story. I can only imagine why, and I can only make conjectures. But yeah, this conversation reminded me about that. So something to think about. Yeah, that's what I would have for now in closing.
So when we talk about perfumes, we talk about natural perfumes, and that must be the, make or break factor in whether a perfume is like appealing, truly appealing, like on a deep level or not. Because Alicia also mentioned the headaches, and, I know a lot of people suffer from asthma and things like that. They, can react on perfumes. And then we also talked about the kind of personal sense. So what would be, how would you find an authentic perfume, and how would you find your own scent to actually like, have that holistic, harmonious marriage of like something from the outside with your own body?
So I would really consider myself a hobbyist. I'm still learning what scents are, what makes a great perfume, but and in fact, I was just telling my parents today that there is this city in India called Kannauj, and apparently it's touted as like the perfume city of India. This is where all of your raw material is basically exported to the rest of the world. Like this city is basically, it's basically a bunch of like small, medium, and big-sized exporters of raw perfume material. So if you're a serious like perfumist or a connoisseur or or a hobbyist, you have to like go visit this place. And I was just telling them in the morning that I really need to go and like learn how things happen. So one of the things is yeah, it's a long process, firstly, you make sure that if you have the time and the patience, then you can source like natural, high quality essential oils, right? And the best perfumes, like what separates like great perfumes from regular perfumes is like the best of them, the most expensive of them, usually have a high concentration of pure essential oil. And other cheaper versions of perfumes basically have more of the synthetic, like the lab recreated, like lab fragrances. And obviously those do not, other than like giving you that olfactory experience, they don't really do much for your body. Like the idea of perfuming and scenting is not just for you to smell great and like attract like whoever you want to attract, or maybe just like, you know, turn heads, right? You also want to start using perfumes for your own well-being. Like if you're suffering from depression, God forbid, or if somebody's suffering from any kind of ailment, you know, something as serious as cancer can also be treated in a certain sense through perfuming, through scenting. And it's like it's like that's a whole different terrain by itself, right? But what I'm trying to drive, the point that I'm trying to drive is that if you really want to use perfuming as a method for you to heal your body, then it's so important for you to like source really high grade essential oils. It's and this is just for healing purpose. We're not talking about complex perfumes that'll make you smell like the next Hollywood star. It's so simple. Like you just need to source essential oil, and then if you also have reservations about alcohol, let's say, because a lot of like perfumes use denatured alcohol or whatever, just use another, like either use a carrier oil if you're okay with using oils and essential, like carrier oils like almond oil or castor oil or whatever oil of your choice. Mix a really strong essential oil, like a couple of drops of the essential oil in the vial. Let's say for instance you have a 5 ml vial, so you fill like 5 ml, 4.5 ml of any carrier oil of your choice, and then to that add like about 10 drops of your favorite like essential oil. It could be rose or lavender, whatever you like, right? And then just, or if you want it strong, then you add more of it. I mean, this is how you make your own perfumes. This is a start basically, right? So I'm talking about, okay, so I'm digressing, but it'll make sense. So one of my very close family friends, he's an older individual, and he also, he's basically a gemologist, tours heavily in Europe, teaching people about gemology, also a Sufist by tradition. And yeah, so he always tells me, if you want to have really good relationships in your life, or if you're not married and you want to attract like someone really good, then make sure that you use a lot of rose in your life, whether it's through perfuming yourself, or if it's just like whatever, rose in the house, like rose mist spray, whatever, like make sure you use rose. And this wisdom is also reverberated in the Vedic cultures. I was very fascinated to find that resonance in Vedic culture also. So yeah, let's say if you're trying to attract like good love, good kind of love, then you use like rose essential oil in your carrier oil. Or if you want to like, if you don't like oils, then you just like use flower water or rose water, and then add like whatever essential oil you want and just spray it. And this is literally my deodorant. I stopped using like synthetic deodorants. So the first step would be deodorizing, and I want to kind of share something with you that I've been trying to work on, like the art of layering perfumes. But usually, like I would just start with, like the perfuming would start with the deodorant, and then you do the perfume, the synthetic perfume on your clothes or whatever, right? So, but my personal deo is rose water and rose essential oil. It's full on rose, and not specifically because I want to attract somebody, but I just love roses. So I've been using that, and it helps in getting in touch with your femininity, because rose is such a feminine flower. So yeah, that's really nice. But something I want to share with you ladies is something that I've been working on, like the real art of like perfuming. And so I recently met someone who's like a distributor in India of perfumes. And I got my hands on this. So my sister sent me this perfume. I really wanted Dylan Blue from Versace. And so she sends it to me, and then I'm like so excited about this perfume, right? I'm like, I can't wait to get my hands on it. And then I finally get it, and I use it, and it was such a flat experience. Literally, it just did not smell at all. And I'm like, what? Like, why? Like, what's Versace? They couldn't have gone wrong, right? You would expect like a fashion house, like, this power brand to like do it well, and especially because it's like such a rage. Um, And then, yeah, he started talking to me about maybe you're not layering it right, you know. Did you, it's best to apply like oil on your wrists and then put the perfume on. And I said, this is bogus. Like, this makes no sense, you know. There's got to be some other way to like really bring out the scent and the perfume. So then I started researching and blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm sure you ladies already do this. I'm not like telling you something that's like rocket science. You know, we do some of these exercises and rituals anyway, but the perfect way to do it, and this is coming from like the Vedas, right? Is this is how you start. So, and I think it should be easier for us now as women living in the 21st century, thanks to all the big brands. Like, they usually have a range, right? If like, you know, the perfume with the lotion, and then you have the body wash to go with as well. So literally, so it was like, if you want to like really smell like, let's say you want to smell like a sunflower, for instance, right? You want people to smell you like a sunflower, so you start with the sunflower body wash. And then what the Vedas, they really put a huge focus on is like oil massaging the body, right? And I think for women especially, more than even men, this is so important. Like, I think I seriously think that women need it more, because we tend to take on so much. Like, men can really compartmentalize their lives, right? But women, I think, get like more stressed about everything. And so like, oiling is something that we don't have time for, we don't indulge in, and it's like relegated to spa time, like, you know, that twice a year for most, for the average individual, or sometimes not even that, right? Like maybe once in 5 years for someone. Someone might do a spa visit. But yeah, it's something that I wanted to share with you. Like, oiling is like really, really important, and it's just not like slathering some oil after you have like your bath, right? It's like literally take 15 minutes. Like, so we're talking about sunflower now, right? So you did your sunflower body wash, and then you would take an oil. Now I'm just joking. Now I'm being serious. You take a little bit of oil after you've like taken a bath, and you literally have to like pressure your body with your hands, you know, starting from your feet, like all the way up, and like really massaging yourself. Like, that's really, really important. And then what the Ayurvedic scriptures say is, then you do body dusting, right? Which is like taking powders. But I think in the modern times, like, the brands usually have like talc powders, which is absolutely horrendous. You should never even think of using like talcum powders. It's yeah, it leads to cancer. It is a known carcinogen, so that's totally out of the picture. But there are some brands that do talc-free dusting powders. So after you've oiled yourself, what you do is you take you yeah, after you've oiled yourself. Now we're talking about, I'm backtracking to the art of perfuming. So after you've done your body wash, you've done your oil, and then you do your body lotion, or you do a body cream. So a body lotion is like more milky, it's thin and fluid, right? Body cream is like thicker. So whatever you like, you know, do a body cream or a body butter, and then that's the third step. And then the fourth step is body dusting powder, but talc free. Like, make sure it's not containing any talcum in it. You do have access to talc free powders now. I think there's definitely in the US, there's definitely in India. I'm not too sure about the Arab world. The Arab world still has to catch up with these things, because most of the products that we get in the GCC nations is basically your big brand houses, right? Which are filled with carcinogens. If you want links to how you can get like some really good brands that do international shipping, Alicia, just like remind me, and I'll send a link to some like really high quality retailers who sell like good stuff, so I can share that with you. So the fourth step is then you do body powders, right? And this in Ayurveda has like a huge influence on something that they call the doshas, right? Which is balancing your elements of the body, like your water, your earth, your fire. and then your air element. So read up on, there's not too much material, but I can share some of the material that I have on the use of body dusting powders and health. So this becomes your fourth step in the art of perfuming. And then the fifth step would then be you do like, you know, your perfume. So the scientific idea is that when you, the body butter, which is thicker, it holds your perfume much, much better. So your perfumes are lasting longer versus just dry spraying on your body. That's going to evaporate really quickly. So if you like follow these steps, like starting with your body wash to then your oiling, and most of the oils that you have now, like they're not like those sticky oils, you know, the body oils are like really, really good, like super absorbent oils. And then the third step would be either a lotion or a body butter. And then the fourth would be powdering your body. And the fifth, the last step literally would be perfuming. So yeah, that's exactly how you're supposed to be doing it.
And I guess when you mentioned like talcum-free powder, then you probably also avoid, you know, carcinogenic or synthetic lotions, body washes, all of those kind of things. So that is a little bit of a science project to find those brands, right?
No, absolutely not. So no. So I have access to brands that I trust, I follow, and oh my gosh, I will link you guys up to a couple of them.
Yeah,
Please. They do international shipping, so all of y'all are in luck.
that would be amazing.
One thing I want to say is my bias is for your brand, Zense. What if I don't want those links? I want them through you. Your brand.
Oh yeah, Zense. Yeah, so just hit me up and tell me if you've got something that you want to rectify with, like, you know, things like depression, or like even like female issues, like, you know, that have to do with, you know, with your reproductive system. There's like essential oils that aid in helping and countering, you know, the effects of those things. But obviously first medical intervention, and this is something that you do, perfuming is something that you do concurrently with your medical treatment, obviously. So yeah, there's a way to like help you through essential oils and perfumes also, and I can do that for you if you wish. So yeah.
So we would love, I guess, the link also for, you know, how to get in contact with you and, you know.
Sure, I'll do that.
Perfect.
I believe there's an Instagram page for your items, your line, Zense. Is that Zense with the Z?
Yeah, Zense with a Z, like sense, ZENSE.me. So it's Zense me.
Yeah. There's a question here. That this is a phenomena as well. You see that?
Those who literally do not exude body odor. Wow, you're lucky. Tell me who you are. Like, tell me who they are, right? I mean, that's a dream, right? But I would then check on their, like, firstly, hopefully their body systems are working correctly, because there is everyone has some kind of odor, you know. But then it might not be pungent, which is great. Like, they're in luck if they don't have that. That means they're eating right, they're exercising right, they're just living life rightly, right? Which might make you believe that they don't have odor, but if you were to really check, like, everybody would have some sense of an odor. But yeah, I'm still very curious about this individual.
There's I don't know who posed the question, but there's also certain like genetic factors, certain, for example, ethnicities lack I'm not sure what it is, if it's like a protein or what it is, that, for example, in the armpit creates the, you know, the smell that we find repulsive. For example, Koreans are almost like 100% of the population lack this protein, so they're basically smell less, like they don't smell. of that. I don't know then like about the skin smell, because that doesn't have to do with those like nasty, like what are they called? The butter acids. I don't know what they're called scientifically, but yeah, there might be also that factor, genetics.
Yeah, and it's very sad, but also, so Black Americans faced a lot of systemic racism because of this issue also in the US, right? Where they were, they were basically discriminated because of that overpowering odor that they allegedly emitted. And I can understand why, like that would have also been true, because they were made to do hard labor and things like that. I mean, it's natural for you to like not be smelling like lilies, if you're doing like hard labor. I mean, it's expected. But then yeah, you're right, those genetic factors could also probably count to that, towards that. But I'm very interested now, yeah, to dig into this a little deeper, and now I understand why a lot of people like really fancy Korean women. Like, I'm starting to make a lot of associations in my head. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know this about the Korean population, but I'm very aware of how it was with Black Americans, and then how they faced racism specifically because of this. So
yeah, check it out with the Koreans. I think there's also other like neighboring nationalities who have the same kind of genetic upmaking, but I've heard it's like specifically Koreans have like big
Wow.
of the population. And
Lucky.
and then of course the diet, like I know there's this, for example, when you eat spicy food, then you smell like curry. I know that on myself, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a whole science of how to eat and what to eat, and then how you'd eventually smell like, And the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is like one of our best teachers, I think, in that regard, where there were certain foods that he would permit and certain he wouldn't at certain times, and so there in itself is like something for us to like learn, a place from where we can learn about these things and just dig deeper. Alicia, you might want to add something to that, because I do believe that you might have an insight or two to share.
Well, I think you said it all, the essence, that if the deeper we study the prophetic medicine or the teachings, we find out more about these topics, that there is an actual science with it, and there are certain foods and practices that are recommended, or that we're actually asked to be careful about, due to for example, a simple thing like there's a prophetic tradition that says that had I not wanted to make it hard on my followers, I would mandate the miswak, the natural toothbrush, as like made it hard, meaning made it obligatory for the followers to use it, because I'm not body mouth odor and stuff like that. So cleanliness, and what are you cleaning? I mean, you got to keep your mouth cavity clean. And that's a major part in, I don't know, like attraction, communication. You're supposed to do certain things prior to reading the Quran or praying. It's a sunnah to use the mouth, the natural toothbrush, the miswak, prior to prayer, for example, or with your ablution. And there's more reward apparently with that. So there's a lot of encouragement towards cleanliness, which is anti-odor, or like, it's not anti-odor, but I would say it's anti, something that's potentially repulsive. So yeah, there's a lot of emphasis on that. Yeah.
I like that you start, you turn the focus towards the mouth. So my academic training is in dentistry. So, and for a long while now, I've been like interested also as an offshoot of Zense to do something about like the mouth, because most of the mouthwashes out there, firstly, you can't use them for a long period of time because they lead to staining. And then the ones that exist are, yeah, they don't really do too much to mask, like if you have like certain conditions going on in your mouth, like cavities, for instance, or like tartar and plaque, then obviously you got to take care of that. But I was also interested in something like really natural that you can use like 10 times a day and not have to suffer like side effects of, because you can't use, like, most of the mouthwashes that people use are chlorhexidine, and that you cannot use it for more than like 2 weeks. And yeah, the other mouthwashes that you have, you're going to burn your mouth if you use it like 10 times a day, right? That's also not an option. So something that you could use to like just keep refreshing every now and then when you need it. Chewing gum is also, it's going to give you a headache after a certain point of time. It's going to hurt your jaw, so that's also out of the picture. So I've started experimenting with like natural stuff now, and I definitely am very interested in creating something specifically for this purpose. And today it's really interesting. So I grew up like watching my mom, like she would have cardamom in her mouth like 24/7, like, I mean, not like that, but like literally I grew up with the image of my mom, like she would do chewing gum and then she would have cardamom. Like, this was like I have an association of the smell of cardamom with my mom. And I love that, but it's not, but imagine, like, you can't be eating, like, chewing cardamom all the time. You got to spit it out. It's not convenient. Do you know what I mean? Especially for like people on the move. It's like, yeah, like, it's just not convenient, right? You want something like really, yeah, unmessy, let's say, in some sense, although you could actually just swallow it, which is also great for your body. But then just to create something that's that's easy to use, let's say. So I recently started experimenting with saffron, and you should try it, but it has to be like pure saffron, right? And saffron is really cool in the mouth. Like, you can't even tell, like, you have a strand or two placed there. But so if you have like access to like good quality saffron, it's supposed to have like a very sweet taste, and it refreshes your mouth. You don't even need too much. You literally need a strand or two. So I don't know, experiment this next time you feel like you want to. And I mean, I don't recommend eating too much saffron over a long period of time because it creates a lot of heat in the body. But one saffron strand a day, or like 2 or 3 a day, should not hurt so much. So maybe experiment with that. But it's definitely in the works to like create something for the mouth, like a freshener that's just like purely natural, that you could use for a long period of time without causing any great side effects. So yeah, just putting like something out there for you to like chew on, saffron strand or something.
Thank you. One thing I wanted to just mention, and then the floor is open for everyone here, is that in one of my courses called the Tao of Islamic Qi, one of the major things that I emphasize in there is the tongue cleaner as part of the your oral care routine, along with what we're told traditionally, of course, brushing, flossing, and whatever the water. I'm using the water flosser too, because I find that it's really helpful. It's like a pressured water cleanse. But the tongue cleaner, like, without that, it's like, I've always questioned the dentists here, at least, or anywhere I went. I said, all these things that you recommend your patients, why is the tongue cleaner left out? And this is a Vedic thing, Ayurvedic sort of practice, yogic practice. And I don't know, like, I just feel that it's so important to include this in the I also remember my grandfather, who never, he was always smelling very nice, and you know, not just topically, but he was just like that. He was just, he had that sort of aura going on. And one thing I noticed was he used to have a neem cup, and he had his teeth to like 90 something. So apart from brushing, you know, being half Scottish, there's no way he would just go all the way probably, but he was very punctual about using the miswak and a neem one or olive. I think neem or olive. The neem is very good for the non-damaging effect that you spoke about. And he also had a neem cup, which I'm gonna look into buying, and you place water in there and you do your rinse. So it's an antibacterial, antifungal mouthwash and probably anti-carie eventually, to probably include that into my practice, just to, yeah.
Really curious what this neem cup is, because I haven't heard. Of course, neem has immense antibacterial qualities, and a lot of your natural toothpaste now have neem as one of the main. But what's a neem cup?
Well, it's basically what I saw was he said he would get that in Mecca, but I'm sure Amazon sells it. It's like a wooden, it's made of the neem tree. It's a wooden small little cup. And when you place the water in it, then it brings the qualities of neem into the water, and then you've got your mouth. So that was like a big thing for him. He would actually drink that water. Forget about rinsing. I think he probably did that too, but he had the most shiniest teeth, plaque free. Like, you know, old people, they can become careless, but he was like, oh my God, very into the prophetic sunnah, but then he had this thing going on too.
Thank you so much for that. I'm going to look into the neem cup. That sounds
so I highly recommend this tongue cleaning business, because you're not going to get anywhere without that, right?
Yes. And it's really strange. You hit the nail at the right spot, because imagine, like, as dentists, you would think that they would somewhere there would be a chapter teaching us about like oral hygiene, right? They don't even go there. Like, the tongue is left out. Of course, the newer crop of dentists now do recommend something, but I do believe that this has come more as an outgrowth of the Ayurvedic practice, which has seeped into the Indian doctor's practice now. But it's certainly not Western, for sure, because the curriculum we'd study is a Western curriculum, right? And there's absolutely no regard given to the tongue in terms of like the mouth as like the whole organ. Absolutely no.
Yeah, I mean, you could do everything. You could do everything. You're doing your flossing, you're doing your whatever, cleaning, you got your electric toothbrush, probably that's gonna like wreck your gums. But the point is that if you miss out on the tongue, that's like where everything is just sitting on there, right? And then you're like close up talking to people, then what? You know? Just wondering.
Zoom does a great job of that veiling, you know, especially post-pandemic, you know, pandemic, that period. But yeah, now that we're back to reality and back to like the human world, yeah, I think that's gonna start being an issue. Yeah, for sure. I mean, your tongue is an aggregator of bacterial dumping. You know, it's gonna stay there because you're eating and also fasting when you're, you know, sleeping, which is why you wake up with such bad breath. It's not your teeth; it's actually your tongue. You know. And also drink a lot of water, you know, that helps also to combat like, you know, odors. But since we're on that, I think a neem cup is something that's, it's on my mind now. So thank you for that, Alicia.
We have with us Noor, and she's very much into the massage and the other healing modalities. And if you'd like to say anything regarding massage and oils in your practice, please share anything with us.
I guess one of the steps that you said, like the massage body oil part, you know, I learned that to do it while it's wet so that it could like seep through. And The thing about essential oils that I love is I always remind myself that we're made out of the ground, the earth, and plants are made out of the earth. So it's essential for us because we're basically our own tree and we need like whatever's from the ground. So I don't really have anything extra to say about it, you know. It's great if you could just have everything seep through your skin as you're doing the client, you know, because that way they're smelling it, they're feeling it, you know, putting it in their scalp, putting it in certain areas, you know, and just breathing. You can like smell it. It's so funny that all this is happening because like alignment is so beautiful. Like alignment is so nice because like all of a sudden everything is smells now. Like I just right here, I'm at my friend's house and now look, there's like these air fresheners and I was like looking at them and then this one says like grace, you know, so I was like, oh well, I want some grace, you know, and then I'm like spraying it, it's pineapple and I'm like, hold on, like this is it's not really smelling all that. And then like so that, but it's funny that there's like this happening and then like right now what's it called, if I'm going on a tangent just let me know, I'll whatever. But so right now so we did a hypnotherapy session with a sister once, Sister Amina. She came in and she's a hypnotherapist and anyways I decided to be a part of it. And so one of the first sessions we had, because I'm disassociated myself. So it was, this is amazing actually. I was disgusted. She took me somewhere subconsciously and I was so disgusted and my stomach started rumbling. And that was like 2.5 weeks ago. But like I said, I can't smell. Like now that I know, it's like, yeah, smelling was taken off of my list during like my healing. And the disgust feeling that I had like 2.5 weeks ago, right? But now when you're talking about smells, I went to the kitchen to get some tea and I saw something and it was like pomegranate, blueberry, and acai green tea. And I could smell it. And then when I could smell it, I was like, I feel like I could taste it. And it's like, wow. So like the senses thing is like one after the other. Because then I was just, and you know, right now I just finished throwing up. And because like now that I have the awareness of the smell, it's just so strong right now. And it's like, since she started the hypnotherapy thing, the thing that was just sitting inside of me, it's like the smells that's happening right now, it literally was like, it's ready to come up. Because I was like, I just want to throw it up. And she was like, no, you have to naturally let it come out. You know, don't force it. But right now, with the awareness of the smell, like literally, I threw it up. And now I feel like I could smell. I don't know why. But all of a sudden, I can smell. So it's just amazing that this is a real thing. And me too, I have that thing where it's just like, well, we're told we can't smell good. Like when you go out, like nobody's supposed to smell you. It's zina, like you're damn near having sex with me. You smell me, it's done, you know? And it's and really like to right now, it's still like, dang, I would still want to smell good. But dang, you can't smell me. So I'm kind of confused, you know? Should we? How far should we do it? And should we just do it on top, on bottom?
Go first, because I just have an insight to share that's I might not have but just an insight, but I'm really interested from a Islamic cultural point of view, or actually from a religionistic point of view, what your thoughts would be on that, and then we can talk about culture and other things.
Who were you addressing? Because I didn't hear that part.
Nuri, she asked about Nuri. You might want to readdress that to her.
Readdressed. Oh, like that. Well, yeah, like, you know, technically, right? We are technically, I like, it's really a strong belief. Like, I can't unbelieve it. I'm not gonna lie. Like, men can't smell us, right? Like, if they smell us, they can. And it's true, when they do smell you, they're like, oh, girl, you smell good. And then you're just like, well, yeah, it smells good up in here, you know? So it's right, like the belief is not leaving. So what's the balance? Like the whole 4 steps and don't do the 5th step, or do the 5th step on your skin and then put clothes on? Honestly. So what do you think? What do you think, Saida?
I know I was indoctrinated with this whole thing, and I'm not denying that, but then it's like, where do you draw the line? Right. And so one of my first teachers, and I refer to her as like Shams, right? That's like the first thing that I learned from her, the art of perfuming. Like, there was never a time she went out without that stuff on her. And it wasn't like to a point where, you know, you walk by and you're just like, you know, turning heads or anything, but she had like something on. And it's about probably having a balance in that. To me, it was more like I saw it as, I don't know, I appreciated that kind of practice, because again, you could be indoctrinated and told that, you know, a woman who leaves her house with scent, she's literally an adulteress, right? So that went out the window for me, and I don't see myself, you know, throwing like so much on, but I do that as a practice. And I think my intention is not for that. It just makes me feel good. It's not about attracting others. It's honestly not that, I don't think. Definitely. It's just for me, it's like part of my aesthetic.
I think you
Intention.
nailed. Yeah, I think you nailed it. It's about intention, right? So that's what the thing is. With Zense, when I started the Zense line, it was really with the intention of bringing healing. I mean, I cannot compete at this point with the biggest like French perfume houses, and I'm not going to pretend I can. Maybe at some point I could create something like really beautiful when it comes to just like perfumes for the sake of perfumes, you know, and I'm really interested also in that. But when I started Zense, it was literally for a very specific purpose, which was to heal the inner issues that you have going on, like medical issues, you know, like real issues, right? So yeah, and I think when it comes to perfume, like your very specific point, Nuri, I think the intention is really important, and one or the other intention is not right or wrong. You know, for instance, if you're partnered, you're married, then you do want to like perhaps like, you know, perfume yourself, like you dress yourself up for your husband, like you would want to like perfume yourself, you know, for this shared experience, right? There's nothing wrong with that, and it should be like, you should be able to do something like that, and that is part and charm of the feminine essence itself, right? Men are, they are from Mars, and women are from Venus. And when you when you look into the Vedas and what they have to talk about, like the planets and astrology, and you know, that form of study, like the Vedic astrological study, like Venus is woman, and Venus in Vedas represents everything that's beauty, and everything that the beauty industry today represents, right? Your clothing, your makeup, and your perfumes, and like objects of beauty and art and things like that. And that's why you see a lot of male artists. They are not there are exceptions, and I know of a few exceptions, but a lot of them are very in touch with their feminine, if not almost feminized, you know. And that's what art is. It's about femininity. So I think it's only women who can bring that experience into a partnership, you know, of like the art of perfuming and dressing and things like that. And that has to, I mean, it is a gift from God to have that, you know, and you should be able to indulge in it. So this whole indoctrination that is misrepresented in Islam about like you are an adulteress, yeah, well, it depends like what you're doing, you know, with perfumes, right? That could turn you very much into that. But if you're doing it, for instance, where it's in a halal situation and it's absolutely acceptable, and you should go above and beyond to be able to do that in the context. But also I think it's important to kind of also just like leave that kind of indoctrination behind and just do it for yourself, you know. I mean, literally anything could be a while, right? You could just like having like the long pointed fingernails today can make you look like you're trying to be an adulteress if you want to. And I mean, it's about the intention. It could literally be anything. It could be just a beautiful piece of jewelry can attract someone. So what do you have to say about that? So I think in those times, maybe because perfumes were also like they're an ancient culture and a ritual that has been existing in societies, you know, that was something that they could pinpoint towards, because again, jewels were very much relegated to the courts, you know, who had a lot of wealth. The courtiers and the kings and princesses had, you know, access to jewelry. So maybe that's why they didn't talk about jewelry, you know, at that point in time. But perhaps, I don't know, we should look into this. They had easier access to perfumes, perhaps. I'm guessing, you know, which is why. And yeah, let's not, that does not mean that we discount the power of perfumes, because Cleopatra literally, you know, mesmerized Antony even before her arrival, right? She, like, Antony was able to like smell the arrival of Cleopatra in her ship even before he got to meet her. So yeah, there goes, like, you know, let's not let's not discount the power of perfuming. It also depends about context, I think, more than anything. Yeah.
Good points.
Someone was talking about hammam. Yeah, I don't know who that was. Alicia, I think you are someone who's more closely related in terms of being like this traveler to the Turkish culture. So you might have like an insight or two to share about like the ritual of hammaming, you know?
We've discussed it, I think, on a previous podcast. I can't remember. Basically, I mean, my experience mainly was in the Middle East, although I have been to a Turkish hammam. I know mainly the popular ones are the Moroccan, and then you have the Turkish. The methods probably have a slight variation, but the idea of steaming the body, exfoliating, oiling, perhaps, yeah, oiling is in the earlier steps. And then you've got basically, you know, like a very deep sort of cleansing going on. And then the emphasis of the perfumed oils afterwards. So there is also in this culture, the hammam culture, that strong emphasis of deeply cleansing the body through steaming and opening up your pores and all of that, because a plain shower and your exfoliating glove or whatever you have doesn't do it all. So this is like a thing that, you know, some women go like a few times a month, especially as I've seen. And this is what I would say, like, I wish I had more access to that now being here in the West. But there are, but you know, even when you see what is offered, it's not very authentic in the sense that the steaming and the exfoliating and all of that. So yeah, I don't know really what to say, because I don't want to go off tangent. I'm no expert at it, but I think it just sort of falls into what we were talking about, cleansing hand in glove with perfuming, and scent and all of that, and it's part of that experience. So yeah, it's a great practice, and it's a great thing. And I know from Louisa as well, who's basically in the Nordic region in Europe, it's a like spa culture is like, or is it not spa culture? What is it called? I'm forgetting.
Sauna.
Sauna culture is like, and they have bidets everywhere in Finland. You know, unlike Europe, every washroom technically has a spray. So water in we're in the region that she's in is like huge, and this deep cleansing, and she'll tell us more about it. But like, I don't know about including the perfume aspect of it, but in the Islamic world, that is all incorporated into the hammam culture. Yeah.
Louisa, I think we're waiting for you to share some insights about.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know how much, there is to say about the sauna when it comes to scent. The traditional sauna, there are many, different types. Some of them are so-called smoke saunas. They would obviously have that kind of a scent. It's a very special type where you fill the sauna with smoke to warm it up, and then you empty the smoke, and then like the walls are all black and stuff. So that has that kind of a smell. But the most maybe frequently used sauna you would have like just like the wooden burner or stove or whatever you call it, like fireplace. Clearly the smoke goes out the chimney, so you don't have that. But then you would have like I don't know what the English word is, like you tie very small like branches of birch together with like the birch leaves, and you would use that to kind of like go over the body, and that gives a very special like birchy smell, but it also has cleansing properties. And nowadays I would say there's also like quite a wide use of essential oils in the sauna, so people do that. But back in the days, I think it's more like, pick whatever like medicinal plants you have in the forest surrounding you. So yeah, just like very shortly about sauna.
Yeah, I think I don't know why that not many people associate Europe, as a continent. Of course, France is, the Mecca, so-called, right, of like perfumery houses. But I think also like, from the even English culture actually has had that, but in a very subtle way, because like the English aesthetic was mostly gravitated towards, I'm talking about like the olfactory aesthetic was mostly towards like the florals that would grow in the region, right? Like the English rose, like the famed English rose and the lavender and all of that. But I think it just became more heavily associated with the Arab culture, not just because there is like a religious disposition towards that ritual, but also because I think the heavy smoky scents just like pushed it right into the faces of like popular culture, right? In just like the choice of perfumes is very interesting. Like, depending on the weather, like how your perfume profile changes from region to region, right? Your heavy scents wouldn't really do too well in like subtle, cute English weather. Like you don't need that. But, a place like the Middle East where it's like so heavy on the sun and the sand, there is a necessity for you to like use like heavier scents. So yeah, it's very interesting. But I think Europe did it in a very subtle way. That's why like the difference even between like European perfumes and Middle Eastern perfumes, you can just like very easily smell that rather. But I think like perfuming and the art of scenting has existed in all cultures, like without a doubt. The Native Americans have like the sage ceremonies and things like that. And pretty sure Nordic culture as well, like the whole birch bundling that you're talking about, like that, there goes. It's a very subtle way of perfuming, but it's perfuming nonetheless. So yeah, just that the Arabs won at the advertising and marketing of it, I mean, I would say that, but yeah.
And I think actually that's the answer to the question that I had in the beginning, like why does it seem so offensive with perfumes here? And I think that's probably why, because it's, if you again look into Ayurveda, which we've been talking about quite a lot, like there's a big emphasis of like local sourced both food and everything you use for healing purposes. So immediately when you go outside of that kind of the flora that you have in that local region, it may just be quite off. So when you're in these very subtle, the Finnish summer is pastel, it's not like, harsh red or blue or that kind of things. And you like put in cinnamon or, things like strong stuff. It doesn't resonate with the rest. So thanks for that insight. I think that gives a bit of a clue of,
Except Christmas is when all the cinnamon and the pumpkin.
Yes.
Nutmeg.
True.
Yeah.
Those are also, they're pretty late, that they've come in. Of course, spices, at the point of, trading and stuff. But
Another thing is that with religion and spirituality, sensuality, Islamically is not a separate factor. It's all embraced. That's why the Prophet said, he could have said anything else. He said, I love perfume, woman, and salah. So that's an integration of the sensual self as part of religion, as part of being a human being. And it's an embracing, it's not like, keep that separate. No. And that's why when you go to the mosque or when you go to a zikr ceremony, you're going to get high off the scent. And then when they go around with the oud, right? It's not just burning in a corner. One of the practices is that you go up to the people and they literally waft it towards themselves as if it's like blessings. And then some of the Sufic healing and probably, traditional healing, they say that the Divaan is an attractor factor of the angelic energy to descend and to assist and to guide and whatnot. So you attract angels through scent and you also repel them through pungent odors. So we totally bow to the sensual element of the human inherent self.
I love that you brought this on the angelic realm. Like, for instance, and this is a very serious study that was done, I think, in Egypt. It's fascinating. So there are a lot of, like, most of the mental disorders in the medical community, they do not have a cure. They absolutely don't have a cure. Like my sister, for instance, suffers from migraines. She has for a very long time. And so every time she would go to a doctor, they would say, sorry to say, but there is no cure in allopathy. All that we can prescribe you is like pain alleviators, right? Painkillers. And then there was a study that I came across, and this was for schizophrenics specifically. And one of the studies was the use of frankincense and myrrh to help alleviate like very heavy episodes for schizophrenia. So can you imagine, like, even the medical fraternity has no idea, like, why, like, certain chemical aberrations happen in the mind leading to schizophrenia, blah, blah, blah. They don't understand why, like, these flashes of light that are associated with some of the episodes that happen, like, they don't have any reason. They don't really have a reason by which they can explain how this happens. And a lot of, like, the religionists would say, well, there is an interaction of, like, another realm with the human realm, which is why they're suffering from schizophrenia. But obviously the scientific fraternity would not accept such an answer, right? But then the study then, like, kind of like brought a very different kind of focus for me, like schizophrenia and like frankincense and myrrh. Can you think about that? Like, like depression, it's like proven that it helps alleviate like depression, the frankincense and myrrh. But yeah, for schizophrenia, that was like a huge insight. That was like, that's very fascinating. So perhaps like the angelic realm, I don't know, I'm just like trying to make associations here, maybe there is, these fragrances, they alter like aura,
And states of consciousness, yes.
consciousness, yeah. And why there's such a huge regard in the Islamic culture, I would say, towards perfuming and the use of loban and all of these things. So yeah, something that I think the medical fraternity should really, really like look into, not to say that they're not, but they're mostly coming from the Arab world again, most specifically from Egypt, where Egyptian doctors and researchers are, trying to correlate the Islamic mandates with 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 medicine, but I wish it could come from the Western world also, like this, to have this focus on, because I think it would help a lot of people. If you go to a lot of like these healers, Islamic healers, they would say, right, like burn oud or burn this and that if you're like suffering from something. I know like Sufis that I know of say that they recommend you to burn oud and things like that in the house so you can dispel like bad energy. So imagine if that would come into the conscious Western world. I think it would help, Yeah.
Schizophrenia is like, I don't know, like medically exactly, but it's like a thing where, you're not safe and your mind is like going and, you're different personality and all this thing. And it's funny because frankincense and myrrh is mother and father energy. Like it's like the mother energy is known as myrrh, and then frankincense was the father energy. So to have like both of those be something that gives you, and that's what I like about the essential oils, and the Western world, it's like they want you to be schizophrenic. They benefit from that. They don't really want to heal you. That's why everything they have is a suppressor or something like that. They're not here to help. They're here to get paid. Honestly, like why would they? The psychiatric thing there, when I went over there, they tried to, when I was searching for help, I was like, so you want me to take your medicine, but I can't take the street medicine, but I could take yours. So that's the West for you. But it's nice to know.
Yeah, but it's no, please go ahead. Please.
Yeah, I mean, it's just good essential oils help with like the things you can't see.
I mean, now it's at this point in this time set we live in, it's unfair to say that it's just the Western world that is so preoccupied with pharmaceutical capitalism, but it's the same everywhere else. Like India is the biggest example of that. They kicked their ancient knowledge in its ARSE, said bye-bye, and then like everything the West was doing. And it's only now that this resurgence of Ayurvedic knowledge has, sort of like come about in the consciousness of individuals. And I'm so happy to see that, especially the younger generation and the brands that they're building, like from like perfume brands to makeup brands. They have everything it's imbued in Ayurveda, and I'm so happy about that. And I really want to link you guys to some of those brands. They're doing so well and they're doing such a fantastic job. It really warrants a looking into, And yeah, I would say it's both the East and West that's at fault here. But yeah, I mean, it's important to have these conversations so that, we know that in the natural world, we have healing elements, I hope that they don't take that away from us, raise everything to the ground, and we're left with nothing but AR and VR and the metaverse to help us, deal with schizophrenia and things like that. But there's a great need to protect these things. I'm so happy we have this conversation, because this conversation is going to stay for at least a few hours, I would hope, right? And that's enough, I think. It's so important to like talk to people about these things. It's so exciting, and I really thank Alicia and Louisa like for just like dragging me into this, unawares, and just throwing me into this pool of
sorry, I just want to say thank you too, because inshallah it's not going to be just a few hours, because right now, like I sprayed the place and the smell, like right now the awareness of smell is like, and it's helping me in my healing process. So thank you.
I wanted to ask you, Nouri, were you diagnosed with the inability of like, is this like a medical condition or?
They on the paper they even put mental retardation. They said I have mental retardation, and
Okay.
they put a whole bunch of a long list. And yep, and I was like, yup, I told y'all, I know.
Yeah. It's so that I like similar conversations with individuals who were diagnosed with something, but they don't, I mean, and they know that they were misdiagnosed. And I think this happens in the US a lot, especially when it comes to like conditions of the mind. There is like this culture of overprescribing drugs to suppress mental activity, and a lot of misdiagnosis also. I've been having a lot of conversations with a lot of individuals, particularly from the US. It's very interesting. Yeah.
So inshallah, we can continue the conversation. I know I was called the more logical part of, this duo of Alicia and me. So we are definitely, over our time limit that we've tried to usually have. But mashallah, Afra, thank you. It's been such a great, like, what is it called? This trying to find the word for it,
Tuning?
No.
No.
I'll find the word later, but an abundance of insights and things to delve further on. And I hope, since we did not have the chance to even get into, sound, for example, and other things, maybe we can hope to get you on board another time, perhaps.
Thank you so much. So much wealth wealth of knowledge and wisdom to discover just in this topic of scenting alone. We could do sound another time for sure, but thank you so much for like having me, really. Like, and I learned so much from you guys too. Like, there's so many things that I learned, and I'm gonna look into this mother father thing with and frankincense, Nuri. Like, that was, yeah, that's very cool. I'm gonna look into that. So thank you.
Thank you, Afra, for all your sharing and insights, and just your presence and everything. Very insightful, and it's definitely not lasting a few hours. This is it, like, meaning this is, going into the consciousness. All
This is the full process from shower to, dusting.
This is prerequisite.
Please, I don't know how I would be able to share like links with Alicia. I'll just WhatsApp it to you.
Yeah.
Everybody, right?
Perfect.
Yeah, and then I'm actually thinking of doing like a mini what do you call that? Like not a booklet, like a writing on like the art of perfuming, and I think that's where I can go like really in depth with like putting links to like brands that are doing stuff in like a particular area, and then I could share that at a later point with you guys. Just like a briefing on like what to do, where to get, and how to get it, blah blah blah. You get the point. So I'll share that a bit later, but for now I'll just like shoot out some links to you guys that you can check, or maybe recreate at home if you don't want to buy them. Like, just make them at home. It's not that difficult. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Until next time. And this is going to be on YouTube.
What? Alicia.
What do you mean?
I don't know.